Hello, I'm Francis Mayberry, and this is my presentation on the Greek and Hebrew cultures and how that they were combined together into Christianity, and how that has, affected Western thought. And if I look like I'm reading down, I've got a lot of things that I kind of wanted to say, so I kind of had to write up some notes. So bear with me. Uh, Three major themes from the Hebrew culture are one, the defined position of humanity at the top of creation. Man is not an accidental creation. He is, a planned thing at this order of creation. He's at the height, the end of the, sixth day before God rests. He's separated from all the other epochs of animals. And the second concept that affects into that is he is created into the image of God. So right and wrong are not abstract ideas, as that if we are, there's a God that creates right and wrong, then there's also, if we're created in his image, we could understand this right and wrong. They're, not some kind of moral relativism. It's just very straight up what it is. And three, all of mankind is tainted with sin. The knowledge of good and evil are real things, and three major themes are real things that are tangible to us. And even though that we have this image of God, most of us are not actually, doing what's right, because it's not natural to us. We are made in the image of God, but we are born selfish and with sin. We are sinful by nature. And so the next thing I would like to look at is some concepts from the Greeks that we take that kind of, play into the Christianity aspect of this as well. And these things from the Greek philosophers, that includes, from Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, is the ethics that they attach to it, this value-based living, like that all life should have this, upper going on kind of thing. And praise of reasoning and knowledge, praise of rationale, and praise of asking questions. And our concept of the soul is somewhat more taken from Plato than I would say the Hebrew concept of spirit. The Hebrew concept of spirit doesn't really have the same traits as Plato's soul, which seems to be more of this westernized idea, like the angel, when we die kind of thing. Doesn't seem to be what happens in the Hebrew culture in the way that they do things. Two figures who belong to these ideas of the religion of Christianity and the combination are Johnist writings, or the writings attributed to John the Baptist, and the writings of Augustine. John's concepts to connect to the Greek and Hebrew blended into Christianity with the Logos, the word or the reasoning of God. And in John, first chapter of John, it says that the Word was with God and the Word was God. Now, if you're using this as the Logos, then it's using a very, Platonic concept, or Aristotelian concept of how this is, what makes the gods, capable is their reasoning. And this reasoning existed before creation. And so there's a spiritual separation between, the physical and the spiritual. The spiritual came first. And that also connects in with the Torah, which has, in some of the Jewish writings in the Talmud, talks about that when in the beginning the Word was with God and the Word was written on fire. And it's not talking about the same kind of word. It says the Torah, which would be the written and oral word, as well as the full containing of the law. And it's this mixing of the two between the law and the reason that makes it very interesting to see that the Johnist writings could be interpreted as a combination of the two religions, or two cultures. For the fulfillment of the law is when it is combined with reason. So you have the law itself, the Torah, and the reason combined together in one figure that is flesh as Jesus. And so it's a combination of, Hebrew culture and the Greek culture. Now, from St. Augustine, we get some other interesting kind of connections to Hebrew and Greek cultures through Christianity. And the addition of Neoplatonic thought into it. He divides the world into celestial and terrestrial, giving man semi-divine nature. And this is kind of a really interesting thing to me, because like the concept of Jewish thought, and even in say Arabic thought, is that it's very connected together, not so much a separation of divine and physical. But in Greek thought, that separation is very real. They're not together there. And I think that if you see people's idea of what they follow a religion for as this reward at the end point of their lives, and that's more following with the Greek idea that there's this separation of physical and spiritual, instead of that the spiritual and physical are connected, and there's a much more distant separation between the two in Christianity because of this. As it also reinforces the semi-divine nature, reinforces the visions or versions of Plato's soul. The concept is expressed with this divinity because, think about it, that we come from this God and then go back to this God kind of thing, where we're still experiencing that immortal soul, thing that the Greeks were all into. But it's not a very Hebrew thing. In fact, so what changed from Hebrew culture after the founding of Christianity into Western thought? I would say as man's semi-divinity in Christian thought was different from the Hebrew thought, which, although placed man above the animals, did not place him in the league with the divine whatsoever. He's still just another man, another creature. He's, like created in God's image, but it never says that that's really the same. They're not, connected like how if we're, made in, God's image, and we're spiritually like God, then it makes us much more, like God. But in the Hebrew culture, I think it's more of we are created with that like God's divinity, but not an actual part to that divinity. I don't know if that makes sense. And the emphasis on the afterlife, presumed by the beliefs of the Greco-Roman combination into Hebrew beliefs in Christianity, is that it creates some kind of interesting situation difference, because in the Hebrew culture, we're all promised that we go to the grave. We're not really, there's this place of resting that we have, but not any real assurance of what happens in the world to come. There's some mention of it, but not anything that actually makes this, the life itself is not the reward. Or the life itself is the reward, not the other way around, where that the life is to get to this reward of heaven and hell, so that we live by this ethical way of the Greek, or Aristotelian ethics, done into expecting a reward basis, because we will go on to this, completing the ladder of creation kind of thing. And that's just, to me, not very Hebrew, but it is showing the interesting happenings when two cultures combine together in such a way, and how two completely different thought systems can actually form so much of the thought process for our thought in general, but that they're actually competing on certain points that are similar but still different. And I just hope that you have enjoyed my presentation.